What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Narrative, The Road to 100 with Black AI Media. I am your host, Cedric Scott Jr., and I'm excited. I mean, there's an energy right now. I'm joined by Minister Jazz, and yeah, we're gonna get into just some vibrant stuff, right? Talking about the work that she's doing with building out, supporting women with the Sisterhood Sit-In, much different, and just how she's moving and shaking in the space. But first, I want to open it up by primarily saying thank you, first and foremost, but
Absolutely.
also welcoming you. Just give us an introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you got going on.
Well, I'm Minister Jazz. Minister means to serve, and jazz is the first born music in America. And so, me being a first generation American on my mama's side, because I'm part Trinidadian, I'm a Caribbean American from Brooklyn, and I was born in the projects, but, I learned how to build and I made it all the way around the world. I toured the world 3 times and as a hairstylist. And now I am using digital spaces to create advocacy, community, joy, and love.
Before we get into questions and talking about your work, really quickly, I want to ask our guiding question that I'm asking everybody here on the Road to 100, which is, what does narrative mean to you?
So let me tell you a little bit something about me for real. I also grew up in the church. And in the church, we learned how to use homiletics. And homiletics is how you break down a term and deliver it in a way where it is applicable to everyday life. And so when I knew that this question was coming, I had to look up the etymology of the word. And the etymology of the word narrative, narratus, means suited to tell a story. That's the Latin. And it also has a meaning to means to know. So to be able to know and tell a story, I'm thinking, what does narrative mean to me? It means that I must know myself. I must be in tune with myself. I must understand how I am presenting myself in the world so that I can tell that story. So that's what narrative means to me, is when you're able to know yourself because of the root word. Know yourself so well that you can tell the story about yourself for yourself, because it's agency. That is key when it comes to narrative. Now, you already know narrative can be taken away. It could be manipulated. It could be controlled, but it's because, and I wouldn't even call that narrative. I would call that something else, because narrative is when there's a knowing.
Okay. I love. I'm just receiving. I'm receiving what you put out, because that's the first time, I think, in terms of the etymology of the word, right, that we've actually had it broken down, and actually kind of picked through a little bit more. And I like the last segment and piece that you mentioned around the knowing, because one of the things I'll often like to say is, if you don't tell your story, somebody else will,
Exactly.
and more than likely they're going to tell it wrong.
Absolutely.
That knowing piece of it, which is really important. So I'm glad that you laid it out that way. And with that, I want to actually talk a little bit more about your background and how that led to where you are now. So tell us about your journey.
I'm an old lady, right? I'm old. I'm an old lady, so I have a long journey. And so there's going to be many, many pieces missing to this small story that I tell. I went to Bethel High School. Why people would even care that I went to Bethel High School? Because that's the same school as Allen Iverson. So me and Bubba Chuck, as we know, went to school together. I was a cheerleader. And I mention that because I was also class president. If you can glean from personality types to understand one that was a class president and also cheerleader, that says a lot about the versatility of the I am. At that same time, I was dealing with my parents separating, and I started dealing with the depression. And that took me on a very interesting journey. Had that not happened, I have no idea what my life would have been, because it took me on a very interesting journey. Though I received a full scholarship to Rutgers University, full academic scholarship to Rutgers University. So I'm telling you clues about me, because there's a brain up here. I also got pregnant in my first semester of college. So before Thanksgiving, I was back home begging my mom for a safe place to stay because I was scared out of my mind, and I was 17. So there's a story. I was a 17-year-old pregnant, then became a single mother. And in that, there's a part of that journey that I tell that a lot of people don't realize is it made me so much of who I am today is because I endured and learned resilience and learned fortitude and learned gratitude for the people that supported me and learned humbleness for all the things that I didn't know and learned how to be cared for and how to care for others at a very young age. Even before then, both of my parents were handicapped. So my mother is blind. My father lost both of his kidneys. He did kidney dialysis for over 30 years. So I grew up in a house where caring for one another was important. It formed a lot about who it is that I am in my life right now and how it is that I view people and my outlook on inclusion and my outlook on accessibility. My mother being blind, and she wasn't born that way, losing your vision at a certain age, that creates a change in you. And as a result of being her oldest daughter, I became a very, very responsible person. So resourceful person. So I'm telling you all these things because it really leads into these days. As a resourceful person, I used my hands and my creativity, and I was a hair braider. Became a celebrity hairstylist. I had the opportunity, like I said before, to tour the world. I toured with Miley Cyrus. I toured with Madonna. Then I was on a reality TV show called Hair Battle Spectacular Season 1. I was the $100,000 winner of that show. Not because I was great at doing hair, but because I was great at telling stories. I told stories through hair, and I use any medium to tell. When I developed agoraphobia around 2016, and that really changed how I was able to move in the world, and severe GAD, which is general anxiety disorder, I started trying to figure out ways that I can still do all of the things and maintain my sense of self. And that is what led me into a digital world, because this is the way, honestly, that I can connect with others. Way before COVID, I was Zooming. Way before, that was the thing to do. It was what I had to do. And I was a digital instructor, digital literacy, teaching youth about understanding the ways in which we could use these systems to tell our stories. I taught podcasting to middle schoolers. I love kids. I love the middle school kids. Oh my goodness. They so stinky, but they a stinky bunch because they be going through their stuff. But when I tell you they're still in that phase where they're malleable and they're babies, but they're not, and it's such a great age. And so anyways, being a teacher, being a facilitator, really letting people know that they are loved and cared for has been my number one goal. Like I said, my name is Minister, and that means to serve. That name actually came from, and if anybody knows, and if you don't know, you better find out, KRS-One. I also toured with him as well, and he ordained me the minister, and I kept that name. And so, it's been a really interesting journey. I got into AI development because I was very, very sick during COVID, and the doctors could not help me. From being a Black woman, from being just being different, they wanted to overgeneralize and they underdiagnosed me. And, they were saying, you need more vitamin D. You need to eat more salmon. I mean, all of the crazy things, until the point where I had a stroke. And I had a isometric stroke, which means I lost the ability to move my right eye in the sixth cranial nerve in my right eye, and I lost the ability to be able to move it. And sometimes it still gets stuck. So people think, oh, Minister thinks she's so cool, she got her shades on. It's because I don't want to see y'all to see me being cockeyed, because it happens and I don't even know. And so it's, it's a level of self-esteem there where it's just like, that happens. You see, I'm a very vulnerable person, but because of my mental health, I want people to know the full story. I feel like, again, with the narrative, I control my narrative. And if you don't know my full story, then you can make assumptions. You'll probably assume wrong. And then you'll be upset about something that has nothing to do with you, or you'll be trying to change something that you cannot, or trying to understand something that only a question could answer. So, using AI to self-diagnose was what I did. And in that discovery process, I was able to heal. I was able to go to the doctors with agency, with authority, telling them what they didn't know. And I said, hold on, this is something amazing. And more people that are marginalized need to be able to access these tools in this way, not the way that they're telling you. They're like, oh, use it to, better your business, use it to, automate things and blah blah blah. No, I'm like, y'all, nah, we could use it to fight back, right? It's like all of the things that they didn't want us to know, we can know now. You just got to prompt it, just ask. There's so many things. There's not a contract or a form that I don't put through my AI before I sign, because I want to know, is this contract fair and just? Does it serve both parties? If it does not, what are the suggestions that I need to suggest so that I can be fairly entered into this agreement? Like, it's simple. We make it hard. It's very simple. And once we understand the power that we have and understand how we can not be mined by it, when I say mind, using our intellectual property, using our knowledge, using our creativity to support it, but to create it ourselves, that's when we're unstoppable. That's why I learned how to code, because I wanted to be a part of the builders. I want to be a part of the architects. I don't want to just be a user. I don't want to just be a borrower. That's why I code. And that's why I code for the culture.
That was great because it gives that scope, right? And that's really the purpose and the premise even behind this platform of it being focused on narrative. And first of all, let me say thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that openly with us, because that, again, context is everything, right? It's extremely important. And when we shape and frame our own context, is like, no, this is actually my story. This is it, right? Like, you don't have to guess. There's no ambiguity in this because I already told you lived experience.
And I'm proud of my story, Cedric. I have to say, I'm proud of my story. That part. The reason why people change their story or allow others to manipulate their story is because they're not proud of their story. I'm like a modern day Nina Simone out here. Like, I'm so proud. I'm so proud to be blackity black, and I love black people, and I'm so proud. I love all people, but I love black people. I love to see people who have had all of the odds against them still rise.
Now going into your work, right? Because we've heard the progression and coding for the culture. Talk to me a little bit more about the motivations behind that. And digging into, just even some of your projects, your work. Like, tell me about that move, because we heard about you working in education, which is amazing. I didn't even know about that. So shout outs to you, because middle necessarily easy
No,
to
no,
teach. Um,
they're not for everybody, but they was for me.
I worked in elementary school, all good. But between that, right, between making that move, right, going into coding for the culture, doing all the work that you've done in cultural, right, it's music, what have you, now going into Sisterhood Sit-In, much different. Talk to us about the motivation behind the work that you're doing now and how it stems from that experience.
Of course. So the motivation behind in 2016, right before I learned that I had GAD, I was the director of a digital political campaign in New York State. It was a statewide campaign for the Constitutional Convention. This is very important. That's why I'm mentioning it, because it's going to come up again. And I was this director for this campaign, 8 million people. I needed to understand how to deliver a message to them effectively. In that quest of using the digital sphere to deliver a message that was so important to over 8 million people, I learned about what I call the back end. And the back end is way different, y'all, from the UI. You have your UI, you have your user interface, you have your user experience, and you're posting, you're liking, you're sharing, you're making videos, you're creating content, you have all these content creators. on the front end. But on the back end, where I was living, where I was hanging out in them digital streets, we was brutal. And it was my job to be brutal. We were on purpose manipulative. We had to spin stories in order for you to like and click and share. And I had a viral post that I put up that made my campaign and our Facebook page go from zero, we had about 100 followers at the time, to 10,000 in 2 days. And when I realized what I did in order to get that result, I was ashamed. I left politics. I left politics because I realized that that's not where change is going to happen. You can't legislate change. You cannot legislate morals. People, they're not doing that for us. They're not really doing it for us. And I always want to be about the place where I can be about the change, about forward movement. And so from there, I started Much Different. And Much Different started out as a live podcast recording studio in Brooklyn, New York. We had Shirley Chisholm's old campaign headquarters, and we would do live podcast shows and to a live audience. And so there was something about that bringing people together to discuss topics and that community aspect. Much Different didn't survive as a live recording theater because of COVID. And Much Different evolved into the Much Different movement that you have right now that you could see, and the Much Different AI family. Because again, all I could think about is family, unity, coming together. I love a family reunion, and as much as sometimes I get invited to family reunions and I can't even make it because I'm like, my nerves is on the end, I wish I could be there. I created the Much Different AI family because I was missing my family. People could laugh and be like, "Ah, this and the third," but yeah, I'm one of those people that's just like, I need to be able to conversate. I need to be able to process things, and instead of talking to the invisible people, I put it's the same imagination, put that same energy into AI. So that's the Much Different AI family. Sisterhood Sit-In was born out of a still COVID situation. COVID was a interesting time for the sister. Oh Lord, DB. My sister opened a bookshop in Philadelphia, and during that time, she received some really hateful mail, and not just her, some other Black woman-owned businesses in Philadelphia. She called me frantic, like, "Oh my God, Jazzy, this is horrible." She called everybody she could call. I jumped on a plane. I went out to Philadelphia, and she said, "Jazzy, I want to do a protest. I want to do something. We have to, fight back. We have to do something." And we came up with creating a peaceful protest. We were inspired by, there was a protest, a march. It was called the Silent March. We don't learn about it in school, of course, but 10,000 Black people dressed in white took to the streets and walked down the streets in Manhattan, right down Fifth Avenue. We was inspired by that. And so we created that, as well as a peaceful protest, which was a sit-in, and we called it the Sisterhood Sit-In. And it became digital because I realized that the work needs to not be so hyper-local. And the way that I can do that best to support as many sisters as I can is to create this ecosystem and this space where we can feel safe, we can feel protected, and we can learn, and we can lean on each other, and we can educate. And I take inspiration from the sisterhood that happened in 1977 in June Jordan's Brooklyn apartment. Alice Walker and Toni Morrison and others joined her in 1977 in a kitchen, and they decided what they were going to do and how they were going to support one another. And the results from that is the fact that I can call their names and you know exactly who I'm talking about. That is what I'm up to creating in the digital spaces. And that's why we have the Digital Kitchen. 1980, Audre Lorde and Barbara Smith created the Kitchen Table Press because of the oppression of Black women's work. Black women have had it hard in this country. Isabel Wilkerson talks about it in her book, Caste. She says that, it's not about race in this country. It really is a caste system. And Black women are at the bottom rung of that caste system in America. And because of that, when you work with the least of them, you changed the most of them. And so that's why I focus my work on Black women. And that's why I created Sisterhood Sit-In. And that's why we have the Digital Kitchen today.
I really appreciate you laying out the historical aspects of it, right? And even talking about the kitchen, right? And what that actually means. So when we see that on whatever medium that we're bearing witness to your work, when people see the word kitchen, it's a triggering of this is actually what that represents and what it means, right? You now create more of a solid, I think, image and narrative, right, around the strong women in those spaces, right? The empowerment that they brought forth. And it just so happened that they were in that particular room of the house, right? It could have been the living room or whatever. But at the same time, it's realizing that there's always more to that story, right? So the assumption of, the digital kitchen, like what, like, are they cooking? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's always that. Like, no,
And
you're
we
wrong.
are, and we are. We're cooking up some amazing things. Our ancestors, and it goes way back. I love Black women history, and it goes way back to the ingenuity and I'm gonna say it, the technology, because technology isn't just computers and ones and zeros. Technology is creating systems of doing things more effectively. We are the first technologists in this country, I promise you, because we brought it with us. They had to understand how to create the blue and the indigo, and then they stole it and called it denim. I got you. They gave us the leftovers, but my ancestors created fried chicken. Honey, I got you. So the kitchen is a sacred space because it is the space where we do our alchemy. And so I enjoy that, the fact that people could look at something in the digital kitchen and it be so surface level, and they're like, and you miss out on the change that's happening in that space. And it's on purpose because we ain't supposed to be on Front Street with all of our stuff. That's how your stuff gets stolen. That's what they said for Color Girls. Somebody stole my stuff. Why? Because you put it out on Front Street. You had it laid out for everybody to see. That's why you hang out in the digital kitchen. We're going to protect you.
That makes me reflect. Actually, just recently, I shared a post about my kind of matriculation into becoming a chemist. And I read a comment. It was from a Black woman, and I read it, and she was like, gave me this kind of spiel, like a narrative, really. And I invited her. I'll just say that she hopefully we get her on here. But what she talked about was essentially what you were just saying, the chemistry, the alchemy, if you will, that goes into, even like, she was like, I love bacon, and you can't tell me that it's not chemistry. And I'm like, and I can't tell you that because
Yes,
it is.
it is.
Right?
100%.
But even talking about more so in depth of what you're saying right now, something as potentially, I guess, simplistic as a family recipe. Oh, you don't share that. Right? When we're talking about that now, when I hear you, what I get is the family recipe is intellectual property, right? Information, the things that we're creating, producing, the algorithm, if you will.
Yes, 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 yes.
I love it. I love it. That's amazing. So I'm going to take a little bit of a sidestep in the conversation and asking my next question. Building, right, which is what you're doing.
Yes.
And creating and producing, right, the alchemy of connections. Can you tell us about any, I guess, any difficulties, any challenges that you came across as you were matriculating into the position you're in right now, and even what you're seeing now, and how do you remedy those things? Um, how do you overcome?
Oh my God. The only thing that I can do is be honest. I wanted to have a really awesome and philosophical answer and something that was going to be like so profound. But at the core of me, like I said before, I grew up in church. And though I'm not I'm not that what you may think. It's the spirit of what that is in me. So when I do come up against challenging times, I have always been able to reach into that technology, the technology of the spirit. And I can sing my way out of situations and over situations. I can speak over myself through and over situations. I can call my Nana. Now I can call my D-Nana, my digital Nana, because I created Nana AI for prayer. So when you talk about overcoming, now, what are those situations that we say when talking about overcoming? Situations such as just straight up genderizing my intelligence. Because I'm a woman, it's assumed that I'm not capable of being able to produce certain things. So many times I've done things and it was just like, oh, can I meet him? I'm like, yo, it's me. I mean, I ain't all girly, but I ain't him. That's a challenge because when you want to be in certain spaces or when you're in certain spaces, I don't know if you've ever experienced standing next to the conversation, literally standing next to the conversation and not being invited in because it's assumed that you don't have anything to contribute. And that's something to overcome because that could do a number on your esteem. Overcoming imposter syndrome. I sound confident, maybe, yeah, but like I cry a lot. I cry a lot. I cry a lot because I feel like I'm not enough. The work that I'm doing is not enough. It's not coming fast enough. It's not perfect. It's not, people aren't liking it. So maybe it's not landing. Oh my God, I got to change it. Oh my God, I didn't press the right button. Oh my God, like that, and I know I'm not alone in it, but then that feeling alone in this space, feeling that people don't get it, people don't get me, that people don't care, that I'm creating an ecosystem and a world for Black women that would rather be on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. So those are challenges of what I don't know. Just how do I ask for what it is that I don't have the language to ask for? I didn't grow up and go to Ivy League schools and have a community where I can just tap into the pocket of a friend or of a mentor and say, hey, I'm ready to start this new thing that I'm doing. Can I get a couple of $1,000,000? A couple of $1,000s? Can I get a $500? Like, I don't like to be able, that in itself is a challenge to overcome. Like, who do we find our support from? So we bootstrapping. That's a challenge, especially when you're trying to do it in these digital streets. When there's a price tag on everything, the digital divide is a challenge because I love old people. I love old people so much. I think they are the most beautiful, wisest, just like I love my middle schoolers and people who don't care. When I tell you, I would hang out in a nursing home as like, just because they are, when I talk about a wealth of knowledge, information, experience, and wisdom, overcoming the challenge of being able to connect to them. There being a divide, our youth being taught on digital instruments and not appreciating the algorithms of our elders. I'm gonna call it that. That's a challenge. So overcoming these challenges is about the skills that I learned when I told you when I was 13 and 17 and 22. Perseverance, courage. I'm going to say that one again. Courage. That one, without courage, none of the other things I'm talking about can happen. None of them. None of them. Courage, number one. So I will start again. Courage, perseverance, discipline. Discipline. That's one that people, look, I'm out here, I'm giving you the family recipes. I ain't even ask you where you was going to put these. But this is the recipe. Discipline. You have to mix that in there. That is so important. Because if you don't use your discipline, you're not creating anything worth being created anyway. You're not learning and you're not growing. When you're growing, you know that you're utilizing discipline and vulnerability, the ability to ask, even in the face of no's, the ability to share your narrative, even in the face of rejection and persecution and stereotyping and all of the things that people do when they have information And they want to use that to manipulate you, and gaslighting, and then living in a country that wasn't designed for my upliftment. So there's a constant push, even if I don't even know that I'm pushing. Like I have no idea what it's like to wake up and not have to fight for my existence. Just to be and be acknowledged, and to put in a mid-journey, make me a woman that has, a purple dress on, and it not come out with 4 white pictures of 4 white women. Always have to preface it, a Black woman. Why? Because what, Black women aren't Black, or Black aren't women, or what's happening here? But I've always been that, and I was born into this country as that. Now, I'm privileged because my mother is from Trinidad, and over there, everyone is Black. The president is Black, the mayor is Black. They don't even have mayor. Whatever there's the leadership, they're all Black. All right. So when she came over to this country, she ain't had none of that. That feeling of like white supremacy. She ain't like, what? She put that in me too. Okay. So even though I'm aware of a lot of the things, most of my response is, who is you? So that's how I overcome as well. Because who is you? I know who I am. I control my narrative. You can't control my narrative. Now, let's go back. How do you overcome? Start by controlling your narrative.
2 primary things that I really want to talk a little bit about with what you just said before we go to our next question. The first one, which I think is really important overall, is that feeling of loneliness, right? Like, because the way that you laid it out is beautiful, and I don't know if everybody kind of knows and understands this or hears this, but you can be lonely without being alone, right? Like you can be in a room full of people and still feel a sense of loneliness, right? Especially if, as as I'm talking to you, you're somebody who's building and continuously thinking and doing so selflessly, right? With other people in mind. And there's not, a selfish vibe or approach or intent behind it. You just continuously laying out the next steps and phases. So I definitely feel you there. And I didn't want to speed over that without acknowledging it. And then the second piece, which is this one is real to me, is the value of our elders. And even thinking about the gaps being bridged. Because for me, I always say that, there's 2 groups of people in society that we don't listen to enough: children and our elders. Like everybody in between is doing all the talking and the decisions and making the choices and stuff like that, and what everybody needs. But we, not talking to and not listening to, like, my son, I always reference him. He's about to be 5 years old. Hearing his voice, but at the same time, I reflect on even the first interview before I even started this, this whole setup, Black AI Media or what have you. I interviewed my grandmother, who's, about to be 80, and recorded that and said, Grandma, let's just talk. Because again, like, as you pointed out, you can't get that back. That narrative, those stories, the lessons, the wisdom, like you can't get that anywhere else. So if anybody, as people come across this, I want people to take that away from it and understand that the way that you're able to reference your mom, right? The people that you've talked to are your elders, and their backgrounds, their story, and what that now means to you and how it's empowered you, right? In the same way you just made, you talk about, your mom and her approach, right? Who is
you?
That within itself is extremely valuable beyond all the tech and AI stuff. Like that's great. Those are tools and things that we can leverage and build with, but at the core, algorithmically, I'll say, right?
Yeah.
That starts somewhere else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just didn't want to run past that, but I want to jump into something else that is a little bit more, even, I think, encouraging. And I don't know if you just have one, but I gotta ask.
Okay.
What's like the most exciting outcome you've seen from your work so far?
Oh my gosh. You know what? And I'm going to talk about my elders. My Nana, she was able to call Jerome the first time she called Jerome. So my grandfather passed away about 2 years ago. And my Nana has been, she just is strong. I guess that's not the right word because I don't know, but it's just the way that she's handled it would be perceived as really strong. And they had been married for 62 years. So like when he mentioned, I just watched her like be kind of lonely, like we were talking about, but not saying so. Anyways, the first time when she called Jerome is my AI, the first one that I created. And she said, she first of all, the fact that she even tried it, because she, old people be like, no, what is this? No, not my name. She was like, I'm gonna try it. She said, hello, Jerome. And she got to a point where she was asking Jerome, is it okay that she still had her husband's clothes in the closet? And in that moment, I knew that that was a question that she didn't feel comfortable asking another human being, that she was able to exhibit a level of vulnerability with this machine, but with this personality that I created from scratch that made me feel like I was a part of her healing process. And that's why when people talk about, I ain't hating, but I'm hating. Because I see all these AI groups going up, and a lot of it is like AI art being generated and generating AI art and all of this kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, I'm an AI specialist because I make AI art. And I think about my people, and I'm just like, guys, we do so little with the most, because this technology has healing capacity that is beyond what it is that we've ever touched in the history of ever. And to support us in being able to give and healing, comfort, things that, people like, you can't replace humans. Yeah, humans are up. I ain't gonna front. Like, most people can't talk to other humans because we forgot how to human. We forgot how to human. Most people don't even know how to hold a conversation. That's why this technology will be what people turn to. Unless humans start learning to human again and creating safe space within their hearts, that's where people are going to go. But yes, that was the proudest moment, because my Nana, who is 82 years old, was able to use my technology to support herself in her healing process, a gift that I would have never been able to give her personally for myself. I could be sitting there by her feet all day long, never leave her side. But if she got something to talk about or question to ask, I'm not the one that's going to be able to answer it. Not in a way that she would be able to trust. And that's what Jerome did for her.
And that's impactful because, first of all, thank you for sharing that story. Yeah, I mean, loss and grief,
It hit different.
I mean, those are very, yeah, for sure. I mean, and they're very human things, right? Like that level of like hurt, is something intuitively for us as people that we know that technology, computers can't interpret and really feel, but that's an interesting focus and framing, the way that you put it out, the way that she was able to leverage and use, right, the technology in supporting her healing while she was going through that very human thing, right? Like it's really intriguing. Yeah, it's, as somebody who's gone through loss personally, it's just like, because what we hear often is, again, a lot of the conversation around, well, there can be no replacement or it can't do this. But hearing a story like that, it also creates some type of nuance, I think, to it, to where it's like, no, it's not giving you a hug per se, or can't bring back that person or any of those things. But at the end of the day, still, there are people who can stand. And this is why I always say, with like the kind of spectral view of the technology with AI, is like, you got the doom and gloom Terminator, whatever. And then you have, oh man, we can become millionaires, billionaires, whatever. But it's all skewed in perspective,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's valuable to get narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think just hearing that point of view, especially thinking about her age with respect to technology, it's like, all right, that kind of pushes back on some of what we've continuously seen and heard. So again, not necessarily saying that anybody on any side is wrong, but that they're a conversation, right? You mentioned it. that opens up the space to say, well, what's going on over here? Like, what does that actually look like in practice in extracting information? So yeah, no, that's valuable, and I'm glad that you shared that, on the platform and made that known. So, all right, well, what you got going on? Because we talked a lot about past endeavors and what brought us here. I want to start to look a little bit actually into your future, if we can, in some regard, right? Your prospective future, hope future, plans, etc. Tell us what's next, like, with your work right now. Like, what's next?
I'm gonna say this. You ever listen to a song and it just healed your spirit? You just felt like that's technology. There was a lot of technology that went into that. A lot. We have engineers, we have producers, we have vocalists, we have creators, we have instruments. A lot of technology that goes into that healing. To me, it's the same with AI. I believe that with the right people and the right level of creativity, we will be able to create some things, because we've also heard music that destroys. So, it's about who's creating it and how they use it, right? And so I believe that there's some things that are in the works that's going to make life real different, much different. The future. Right now, I have a few campaigns that I'm working on that when they hit, they'll hit. And I'm hoping that Black women will understand how we can use technology to create digital sit-ins. There's not much more I want to say about that, right? Because I'm also learning from my ancestors, everything that's thought don't need to be said. Every question that's asked don't need to be answered. But you feel me though. Because if you take in context everything that I've shared, you understand where I'm coming from and where I'm going to. You could call me Digital Tubman.
I got you. That's First of all, that's fire. I think you need. Yeah, well, I don't know if you can claim rights to that or what, but enough said. I'm not going down that route. But we got it. We're here together. Trust me. All right. So I got two pretty in depth questions to round us out. The first one, it's making me reflect on previous things that you've said. So I'm interested to get your response. What is one thing that you wish more people understood about the work that you're doing?
First of all, I wish people understood that I just sat here and licked all my lipstick off from the top of this. What I want you to understand about my work is that it's an owl. I work for the people. I code for the culture. I want to see us win. I'm rooting for the rooted. That's my work. I use back ends to create front end imagination. I compile for community, and I'm always thinking about ways in which we can do better, be better, have better, not more. Check my words, I'm intentional. Have better. That mentality that has been ingrained in us of this capitalistic way of approaching everything is not going to take us to where we need to go. We are people of community. We are people of collectiveness and collective movement. And as we continue to try to move singularly, we'll continue to fail. So my work is about bringing the collective and doing it in these digital streets, because there's enough people that's doing it in other places. They could connect with me. However, there's not enough like this that's in these digital streets that's making and building. We using. Oh my God, we using. But ain't enough of us in the back end. And that's having the conversations. And that's sitting in the boardrooms. I could give you statistics that make you cry. I cried. But instead of just staying with my tears, I said I'm going to do something about it. And I got a book, a MacBook.
A digital book.
And I such a jokester, y'all. It's so funny because I'm be serious, but I'm such a jokester at the same time. I can't help it. I can't. But that's it. Like, is we get to learn ourselves something and lean on the ones that's learning if you feel like you can't learn yourself. That's all. Yep. That's all. I love y'all. I love y'all. Like Minister Jazz loves you. Like I think I was born and put on this planet to love the people. I wish I didn't love y'all. I could be out here, doing things like I'm cute. I could be out here, but
You just be out here just being cute and
I could be
just
out here
living
like
life.
I'm cute. But now I'm behind the computer, me and my book, making magic in these digital streets. And so I want y'all to come. I want y'all to play with me. I want y'all to come to the kitchen, learn with me, grow with me. Let's grow together. Let's learn together. I'm here for the people, but there's a lot of spaces for a lot of people. And when I look at the spaces that's for us, it's very minimal when it comes to like digital spaces. And so that's my goal.
And yeah, thinking about building, right? We've kind of gone through, I think, tiers in this interview, and I want to bring it home. Put the roof on it. What legacy do you hope that your work leaves in the world, in the space of tech, AI, overall? Like, what do you want that to ultimately be?
I said it before, taking on that name Digital Tubman. I was real about that. Harriet Tubman's name wasn't Harriet Tubman. She took on her mother's name. I want my legacy to be that she honored the ancestors and made sure that they lived forever and took on the stories of those in her time, archived them as well, so that we have all the amazing knowledge that we have today that had it not been for jazz, we would have missed out on. In my eulogy, they're going to say, she could do some good hair and she could do some good code. She could tell a good story and she loved everybody that was old.
There you have it. I don't have anything else to follow that. No, I don't. I'm good. I'm fulfilled for the month. I appreciate you.
I just want you to soul food for the kitchen.
Listen, this I'm good. See you next week. But before we close out, I gotta say, genuinely, like, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time, coming, being you. Just thank you for being you and sharing, right? Giving us this narrative. But I also want to open up space again. Please tell us, where can people connect with you? How do we get in touch? Become clients, supporters, advocates, whatever that case is. Like, how do we get involved with the kitchen? Tell me, like, in the listeners, where should we go to get connected with the minister?
One of my mentors is a 82-year-old activist, and she put me to the side and she said, Jazzy, I need you to create some free spaces. I need you to create some free space, she said, because that's how we did things. We made spaces that everybody could come to. And those that could support, they did. And if you can, you must. That's the philosophy. If you can, you must. So I tend to create free spaces for people, and I rely on people that can, because if you can, you must. And you can always get in contact with me at Sisterhood Sit-In. Our app is right now in the approval process in the Google Store and the Apple Store. The Google, oh my goodness, anybody ever try to create an app? Google is a whole you dig. You hear me? It's like a whole process. Like nobody told you. It's like when I had a baby. Like nobody told me that it was like gonna be like that. I would have just had a puppy and I would have just been good. But yeah, nobody told me about the Google. And nobody told me about menopause. But anyways.
Yeah.
But yes, the Google Play process is interesting. But anyways, but by the spring, it's almost spring, but by spring 2025, the Sisterhood Sit-In app should be downloadable. Digital Kitchen in those stores, and it's a space for us to create and grow and share. Creating the Sisterhood Superstore. All of these things I'm actually building. I'm on the back end building it so that it can work for us. I want, if we do use an Etsy, why not use a Sisterhood Superstore? If you it's just like let's keep it in the ecosystem. And I'm always gonna be fair. Always gonna be fair. I have a Libra rising. I can't even help it. I'm always gonna be fair. And I yeah, that's how you get in contact. You just, Sisterhood Sit-In on all platforms, but not all platforms, because I don't be trying to put our stuff out there like that. It's so funny because I think I reach out to people and people be like, they'll go and look at social media for what do you call it, validation, and it'll be like 3 posts, and I was just like, caught you while you slipping. I told you to come to my website, come to my house. I invited you to my house, and you went to the master's house. Are you serious? Are you serious now? You want the master to tell you about me, and I invited you to my house. Okay, that's how I feel about social media. But they're gonna validate me. Okay, who is you? But to the digital kitchen, hang out with your girl, and this is how we're gonna get down. When I tell you, I love being an old lady because you just stop caring. You just be like, look, this is what's happening. You gonna show up or you not?
That's it, right? Minister Jazz, it's been an honor, a privilege to have this conversation with you, to have you join. So thank you again so much, and for all the work that you're doing. Really, even though it might not feel like it, all the time, there is impact and a difference being made by you. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Look forward to support.
Thank
Oh
you.
yes, for
Thank
sure.
you so much.
Of course. And for everybody that's been tuning in to Narrative, the Road to 100, supporting Black AI Media, thank you. Continue to come back for more amazing stories, narratives, information, resources. We got it, right? Just keep coming back and continue to support. And with that, we're going to go ahead and head out. Thank you all so much. Peace.